Overcrowding is one of the challenges facing our education system. Many schools face dilapidated infrastructure that has become a health hazard and undermines the rights for learners to access quality education. Now, recently in her report, the Public Protector of South Africa, Advocate Gcaleka, found that in the Eastern Cape schools, 164 learners shared one classroom. Now, this matter has become a bone of contention in an ongoing court case since 2018, in which parents from 4 schools in the Eastern Cape, represented by the Legal Resource Centre, took the MEC for Eastern Cape Department of Basic Education to court over the extremely overcrowded conditions. To tell us more, we're joined by Cameron McConnachie. He's the attorney and co-lead at the Legal Resources Centre Education Programme. Thank you for joining us, Cameron. It's wonderful to have you here on the programme.
Morning.
So this is, as we mentioned in the intro, it's an ongoing case. Since 2018, this has been going on. How much has it set a benchmark for other schools around the country, this particular case?
So the case was divided into 2 parts. The first part, or part A, dealt with the 4 specific schools, and they did get a court order. The matter wasn't argued, but the order was granted by agreement. And so in that sense, it hasn't really set a benchmark, but, you know, the benchmark is already there. The norms and standards for school infrastructure were promulgated in 2013, and the norms relating to overcrowding and how many children can be in a classroom became effective in 2020. So for 3 years now, any classroom that has more than 40 children in it is in breach of the law.
Sure.
So in terms of this case, the part A, 3 of the 4 schools have been provided with classrooms. So 68 classrooms have been built at 3 schools, and at the 4th school, the contractor is now on site, and it's expected that the classrooms will be completed by June next year.
Yeah.
But part B, go ahead.
No, not at all. There's just so much to talk about, and the sort of thoughts are going through my mind here. I mean, you talk about no more than 41 kids should be, or learners should be, in a class. And here in the introduction, we're saying they're up to sometimes 164 learners in one class. I mean, this is a dire and desperate situation. Since this court battle has begun. Obviously, we know that parents don't want to leave this, and neither do you, which is a great thing. And these are the 4 schools that we're looking at. I know you're busy explaining to us how things have changed, but have you noticed that there has been a dramatic change with this application at these schools?
So part B of the application is what is seeking the more systemic relief. In relation to the 4 schools, yes, there has, or the 3 schools that have classrooms built, there's been a dramatic improvement. You know, when we were first approached by the schools, when you visited the schools, you know, the teacher was, couldn't move from the blackboard. The classes were completely packed with desks. Students sitting 4, sometimes 5 to a desk that was designed for 2 learners. If a child wants to get up to go to the bathroom, you know, they have to clamber over 4 or 5, 15 students to get out the door. Incredibly disruptive, difficult to maintain discipline. The workload on the teachers is unbearable, and they can't keep up. They can't mark all the work. It's very difficult to engage with the students to find out who's keeping up and who isn't. Timetabling becomes virtually impossible. Writing exams is a very traumatic experience because often learners have to begin writing very early in the 4th term or in the 2nd term in order to stagger the exam periods for each of the grades. So, you know, in some schools, the grade 8s and 9s, they've finished their exams for the year already. And here we are, you know, middle of November or earlier, and they'd finished a week or 2 ago because they have to make space for the other grades to be able to write exams. So the impact of overcrowding is dire, and it's seen in the results of the schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this, of course, is, I mean, obviously we're focusing in on the Eastern Cape, but I don't imagine this is only the Eastern Cape. I know this is your case you're looking at, but I imagine this is a nationwide issue. I mean, when we look at statistics, it's about, what was the number I had a look at? The latest statistic that we have is for teachers, it's a ratio of 70-1 across the country. 70 learners to one teacher. I mean, this is it's almost an impossibility, even though we're talking about much more learners in classrooms. My question to you, however, is in terms of the response from the Eastern Cape, which is a bit worrisome because they're saying they don't have the money to rectify the situation as yet, and this takes a very long time. Your argument back to them was the fact is when you look at the money that they underspend, that's a great worry as well. I mean, basically looking at it is that they underspend and give back money to the total in the 2020-2021 financial year. They underspent its budget and had to return approximately 205 million rand to Treasury. I mean, if we look at the money returned and the money that's needed to fix these schools, what are we looking at here?
So it's a major problem, the underspending, and one of the reasons we think is that there's very poor planning. There's a lack of information, there's a lack of serious thought going into what is the best way to ensure that the money is spent as effectively as possible. So to be honest, you know, the money needed to solve the overcrowding problem is far in excess of 205 million. But, you know, 205 million will build upward of probably 20 classrooms. So every year that money is sent back, you know, you are dealing, it is a major, it does have a big impact. So the second part of this case, the parents and the schools are continuing with, is about asking the department, or seeking the court to direct the department to produce accurate data regarding where the overcrowded schools are, particularly those with an average of more than 60 learners in the classroom, and then to produce plans for how they intend to address the overcrowding. And we've asked that the court retain jurisdiction or retain oversight of the matter until the overcrowding is dealt with. So that's really what the department's response has been, that they don't feel that they should be required to report to the court. And our argument is that this problem has been going on for so long that we think that court oversight is important and necessary.
Yeah.
So we do think that plans, proper plans, which the court is able to engage with, is something that should go a long way to improving the rollout of the classrooms that are needed.
Yeah, it certainly would, one would imagine, because I mean, just looking back at the history of this, it's been a very complex issue in terms of these classrooms. I mean, at Nduku School, they've got 1,367 learners. This was in 2018 with 24 classes. So on average, I mean, you just could never be at that level of 40 learners per class. In fact, it far surpasses that. Sometimes there's 94 learners in a classroom. There are still mud facilities that they have to learn in. There were also protests at some of the schools where they burnt down those temporary structures. Then they were rebuilt. I mean, it has been an exceptionally difficult case, no doubt. But are you hoping that now with the court overseeing it, the deadline that's been given, that we're actually going to see some closure on this particular case?
So I just need to clarify that the court hasn't granted judgment. So the case was argued on Thursday last week, and the judgment was reserved. So we're not sure if the court is going to grant the order that we're seeking. But we hope that if they do, that it will make the difference that we're seeking. And we think that better data collection, improved planning, reporting to court, and with court oversight, we do think that it will push the needle and improve conditions in classrooms.
So we wait for that and hope that will speed up the process. But in terms of the burden on teachers, because this is also something that perhaps we're ignoring as well. I mean, to try and have one teacher in a class of between 100 and 165 learners, the lack of teachers must also be a huge concern. Has that been brought before the courts, and also what has been said about that?
So it's not always a case of there's not enough teachers, there's not enough classrooms. So you might have the correct ratio of teacher to pupil at the school, but there simply isn't enough space for the teachers to, have the correct number of children in their classroom. So that's in some cases, but there's been an ongoing increase in the learner teacher ratio. So, 5-10 years ago, when it was 30-1, it's pushed up to often 36, 37, 38. We do have a huge problem with vacant posts in the Eastern Cape. So there are vacant posts that haven't been filled. That matter has gone to court before, and it did see an improvement for some time. But, unfortunately, there are, as you've alluded to, numerous problems. And I think, we really need a sort of a broader intervention with more political will to see the changes that are needed on multiple levels. So it's, litigating case by case is not the answer. Mm-hmm. Litigation has always been the last resort when schools have tried everything in their power, numerous letters, numerous visits to the departmental offices. Litigation is not going to solve the problems. It's just one way. It seems to be one of the few tools which desperate parents, desperate schools have. So we don't see this as a silver bullet, but we do see it as hopefully something that will make a difference.
Indeed. All right. We wait on that one. No indication as yet, obviously, when the ruling will be, but that's something we'll be watching, and hopefully it can set a precedent. As you say, this is only 4 schools. There's an entire country that's going through many of these issues, if not worse. Cameron McConnachie is an attorney and co-lead at the Legal Resources Centre Education Program. They're talking about overcrowding at the schools. It's an ongoing court case against the MEC for the Eastern Cape Basic Education Department.